Hi and welcome. In today's Reframe Tune-In, I am chatting to women's confidence coach Emma Clayton. Now, having worked at board level herself in the corporate world, Emma's work concentrates on supporting women to believe in themselves and their capabilities, to feel confident and empowered so that they can lead unapologetically in the workplace and have healthier boundaries around their work-life balance. Emma's work focuses on banishing imposter syndrome and elevating our sense of self-belief. Emma understands the direct relationship between body acceptance and our confidence and how that impacts our relationship with food. Having qualified as a nutrition and lifestyle coach, in addition to all her other qualifications, she has a special focus on the non-diet approach to health. Emma talks openly and candidly about her own relationship with her body and her experiences of binge eating in today's episode. So here is my chat with the ever lovely Emma. Hi Emma, thank you so much for joining us here at Reframe Club. I'm really excited to talk to you. So could you start by telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy talking to you, Rose. So it's a pleasure. My name's Emma Clayton. I am a career and confidence coach working with the high achieving, high performing female leaders and aspiring leaders of the corporate world. And they basically have this great knack of showing the world a real confident, assertive, strong facade, if you like, but on the inside they're really struggling with a lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, where they don't feel they're good enough for the success they have, and anxiety and self-doubt and worry and all that goes along with it. So I really work with those women to really build a genuine, real confidence to be fully themselves, so that they can show up, be seen, be heard, in not just in the workplace but in life, and really have the impact that they know they're here to kind of make.
Okay. And what led you to doing what you do then? How did you come to
Yes.
be a confidence coach?
So my journey was really, I left school at 18 and joined a corporate organisation, a large global company, and kind of worked my way around and up in the organisation over 20 years. And I did various leadership roles. It was a very technical environment. I didn't go and get a degree after school, and I never felt like I was clever enough in that environment. So I kind of chose that leadership route, which really fit in with my kind of natural people skills and ability to inspire and motivate. And I liked the operational side of things because I could get my teeth into stuff that the technicians weren't interested in. So I kind of had this inner struggle and battle, if you like. But it's really like, knowing what I know now in hindsight, it's really a complex kind of web of stuff that was going on, even back from when I was growing up. So gymnast when I was young, being in a leotard, I always felt like I was in a bigger body in a lineup of young gymnasts. So I was very conscious of my body from a very young age. Then I had something that happened in my childhood that actually meant I turned to food to cope with it. So I would spend my £1 bus money on 4 bars of chocolate that used to be able to get back then, and walk home and eat them on the walk home. So from the age of 9 or 10, I had this real dependency on food to just kind of escape from things I didn't want to know, and things that a 10-year-old shouldn't have had to know, really. And then there was the bullying as a teen. The boys were the bullies, really, and they kind of really seemed to hone straight in on my insecurities around my body, and they called me fat. I was Blobby Clayton. Mr. Blobby was a thing back then. I was Pan Cracker, and it was only years later that I worked out it was like the toilet pan that I would crack, apparently. It's like, they were very novel. So yeah, it was the boys that were kind of the worst bullies, and then I had a string of bad relationships. I was cheated on, so it kind of really, my self-esteem was quite low going into that work in the first place, as a young woman. And it kind of just escalated from there. And it was really my journey was that rock bottom moment, you know, when you sort of say, do you know what, enough is enough. That first moment for me, because there's been a few, was when I turned 30 and was like, I was my heaviest ever. I was absolutely miserable. I was in Tenerife with my girlfriends, and I was surrounded by so much fun and love, and I felt so miserable. And I was like, something's got to change. I cannot go through my 30s in that same kind of self-destruct mode. So I thought it was me doing it to me, not really realizing that it was a culmination of all these external pressures that I'd taken on internally. And then it was a process from there through my 30s, really, to the point where I started to connect a lot of the dots. So I was around 34 when I went to my first therapist, because I couldn't stick to a diet. I couldn't stick to a diet and like keep the weight off before I would be binge eating again. I could binge eat for weeks on end. So I went to a therapist for that reason, and she kind of connected the dots for me and said it wasn't the eating behaviours that she needed to see me for, it was the anxiety. I was really functioning at a high level with this anxiety, the low self-esteem and the lack of trust due to childhood trauma. So it kind of all started to fall into place, and that just set off this this motivation inside me to kind of, still at that sort of time, looking for answers to kind of fix myself. And that led me to working with health coaches, and then I got to 2.5 years ago when I was actually put at risk of redundancy from my job after 20 years. And I was like, do you know what, I've come so far in my journey that I think it's time to go and explore something else. And I just knew I wanted to go and help other women that had experienced similar journeys to me, and was still searching for those answers. And I knew I could help them with everything that I'd learnt, and everything I've learnt since then as well. So yeah,
that's incredible. That's an incredible story, and amazing how you've kind of, I think the most powerful thing is when you can begin to join the dots, because we see everything in isolation, don't we? Especially when it comes around our body image and food, because we're told by all these external voices all the time that there's a solution. You just need to do this fix, you need to do that fix. And actually, when we can begin to understand that a lot of our behaviors around food are actually a manifestation of trauma, or an inability to process or give ourselves permission to feel or acknowledge all of that stuff that we're carrying around with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something you said that really resonated with me when you said about at school the boys were particularly unkind, and then that you worked in a very technical industry. Was it a predominantly male industry?
So I think we could go quite deep on this, right? But I think so corporate is a very male environment created by men for men, and that's just a historical thing. And when I think about my dad, who I grew up with, he's a very masculine, dominant guy. Love him dearly, but he's very Jekyll and Hyde, very volatile. You didn't know whether you were going to get the puppy dog fun dad, or the kind of not in a good mood, stressed out, don't cross him kind of dad. So I think there's that element. And I was very much brought up as little girls should be seen and not heard, almost in jest, but there was an element of underlying that was kind of what was expected of us. We said our P's and Q's, and you weren't encouraged to have an opinion. And then it's almost like I didn't know how to stand up to myself to those boys. It was similar with the girls. The girls, when I was younger, I wasn't able to really stick up for myself, because I was never really taught that. I was never really taught to expect it or how to handle that. And so you go into this workplace, and I was probably already very masculine in my approach, because I'd had to adapt to cope with the boys and put on that facade of it's not affecting me, and to not show my dad that I was just wanted him to be fun and loving, and not be affected by his bad mood. So yeah, I think it's sort of, there's a thread of that through upbringing and through my career. for sure. And I think that's probably the case for many women.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's almost like you can't talk about one without the other. I think they're so tightly entwined. I think there's a lot of opinion around how diet culture is in part the patriarchy's way of keeping us small, because if all of us are walking around not eating enough, we're all bloody tired and we can't go and achieve what we want to achieve. But I read something the other day, there was a meme going around that, memes aren't too funny, isn't it? But it was a quote on Instagram saying, diet culture keeps women looking in the mirror instead of looking outwards into the world. And I thought, that's so true.
Yeah, completely.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I think our ability to take up space is so intertwined with our body confidence, because we're taught to sound a certain way, to be very conformist, be very permissive, be very modest. That's the other thing, we're taught to be modest, aren't we? And I mean, that must have been your level in the workplace. How did you sort of...
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of it at the time, because I just always took it on as my own kind of tendencies and personality trait, if you like. But I was quite open in asking and seeking feedback. But I wasn't interested in what I did well. I was interested in how can I become better. It's like that high achieving, like push, strive, bigger, better, like you can always be better. And I think there's part of it that goes back to perhaps not our generation necessarily, but the generation before us, that were perhaps just coming through this wave of, their parents were probably encouraging girls to, you can do what the boys have always done. But the girls, in hearing that, have translated that to, I've got to behave like a boy. And therefore our parents are perhaps more in their masculine tendency, because that's how they've got on, and that's how we've picked up that we've got to sort of be in the world to do as the boys have always done in years gone by. So I think there's an element of that.
Yeah, massively. And also an element, I think, of our parents, I remember my mum reading a book called what was it, Wonder Woman or Superwoman, You Can Have It All, or something. I remember that book being by the bed. It's a very famous 80s book. But I actually think the fallout of that is, for our generation, we were taught, yes, you can be all those things to all those people. You can have the big career, you can have this, you have that. But society's expectations on us didn't change. You still have to look a certain way. You've still got to do the washing. Have you picked the kids up? And what's the plan for dinner? It's actually, I think we've had it quite tough as a generation. Yeah,
definitely. And there's also something I've just thought as well, when you're saying about kind of taught to play it small. There's a interesting paradox, if you like, in that part of being in a bigger body, for example, for me, I've always been in a bigger body since my late teens. Part of that does, even though you are in a bigger body, it keeps you playing small as well. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent.
No. Say more. It's really interesting.
Because it's almost like a protection, because if you're not seen as this perfect size, attractive, then you almost go unnoticed. So there is a protective element to gaining the weight, to holding on to excess weight, that keeps us playing small, because we don't believe we can, in this bigger body, we can really meet up to society's expectations, because we look this certain way, and there's certain stigma attached to people in a bigger body, whether that's that they're lazy or that they're greedy or those kind of things. So it does keep you small in that sense as well, even though you're in a bigger body. It's like it's a paradox, if that's the right kind of word to use.
No, definitely. So how do you feel that our within the realms of the work you do around confidence in particular, and meeting our potential. How does that relationship between our bodies and our ability to take up space, how does that play out? How do we overcome it? Is there can't, I don't know, there's a magic formula, I doubt, but where do we start?
Yeah. So in all the work that I've been doing on my own journey to kind of overcome this thing as well, and I've found myself in a very different beast, if you like, in terms of I'm no longer in the corporate world, I'm in an entrepreneurial world where actually you are way more exposed than you ever were in the safety of a corporation. You've got to be all singing, all dancing, a business of one. So I've continued my own inner journey to find that confidence to show up and be seen in a bigger body still. So through that, and also working with women for the last 2.5 years, I have come up with a formula. I call it the real confidence code. So this is how you find that real genuine inner confidence that's not that fake stuff, not that facade. And real is an acronym for rewiring your mind, embodying the change and the confidence, aligning to all that who you are, and actually leading from the heart. So it's a real kind of process that I take people through, but really the rewiring is kind of the key. This is the thing your listeners, your members can do starting from now, is in order to rewire these programs, these thoughts, these beliefs we have about ourselves, we have to start becoming aware of them. So conscious awareness of the thoughts that create the feelings in our body that move us to take action or not, or those behaviors around food or whatever they are. We have to, they start with a thought, and when we can tune into that, we can really start to work out a lot about what's going on and how we can then rewire it for that kind of success, that inner confidence. So that's really the starting point that I work with, and I don't know how that resonates with how you work in the Reframe Club, because Reframe is kind of part of that rewiring, right?
Yeah, massively. And even from up here, considering exactly what you said, recognizing the difference between thoughts and facts, and bringing your awareness to a thought, and actually almost standing outside of it. Oh, I'm having I'm not good enough thought, or whatever it might be. And then allowing yourself to sit with it. Where is it in my body? Where am I experiencing it? Because when we can do that, we can allow it to begin to move through us, rather than, I always use the analogy of being on a train platform, and there's that I'm not good enough feeling, and it's coming at us like the 9:14 through Paddington Station, and we have a choice. We either stand on the platform and watch it come through, and it's going to ruffle our hair and leave us with a bit of smut in the eye, or you jump on it and that's it, you're down that very well trodden goat path in our head. But also, as you said about buying, it's almost like buying a pause between the stimulus and the response, because often with the in my own private practice, the clients I've worked with who tend to have a lot of emotional eating or issues around emotional eating, there tends to be, it's a knee jerk to the stimulus. So the stimulus is, I feel inadequate, or I feel overwhelmed, or it's been an accumulation of stuff over a day, and the response is to reach for the food. So as you say, if you can practice the bringing your awareness to the thought, you bring in a pause, and in that pause you can ask yourself the question, what is it I really need? And sometimes that need is, I need a hug, I need to give my mom, I need to whatever it might be. Sometimes it is, I need to eat it and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is a practice, and this is where I don't think there is necessarily a quick fix for this. It is really understanding the power of this thing in between our ears, and how perhaps those thoughts translate to how we talk. So even like how we use language, sometimes the things we say, if we haven't heard our thoughts, we can catch ourselves on what we've just said, and then that reveals a lot about going on in there. So it really is a practice of becoming aware, and the more aware you become, the more aware you become. You can't ever lose that kind of awareness, and that's a fascinating thing for me. And that, and knowing that we can actually reprogram these conditioned thoughts and responses in our mind to something that's more empowering and enabling us to meet our goals and outcomes that we want. That's exciting for me. I can really geek out on that stuff all day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's almost like we don't shout about it enough, do we? Actually, that as human beings, that neuroplasticity, that ability for us to make new connections and create a different go path, we can, because we sort of grow up and we think, well, this is who I am. I am a glass half empty person, or we define ourselves, don't we? But actually, looking at the science behind it, you can completely change those pathways.
Yeah, and it's that you've just hit the nail on the head in terms of the identity piece as well, right? Because when we say I am anything, whether that's I am a smoker, or I'm a binge eater, or I am not good enough, we identify, like, that's showing us a real strong identity with that thing. But actually, when you unpick some of that stuff, like I'm a binge eater, well, binge eating is a behavior. So I'm like, I binge eat occasionally, but I'm not a binge eater. Like, I'm, something bigger, something more. And like, even that kind of language is really helpful for us to go, for just us to be curious and inquisitive around what's really going on at a deeper subconscious level, because it reveals so much. And often we can't pick that out on our own, which is why we hire someone to help us. And that's why a coach is amazing at just listening to you and just playing back to you some of those things that maybe you have a blind spot around.
Yeah, definitely. And helping you understand how much you've inherited. So when you were saying I am, I'm hearing, so much of the voices that come from our childhood, our parents, teachers, influential people who tell you that you are.
Yeah.
And how that then plays out. I mean, I was always told, you are the good girl, you are the prize winner, you are the, and how that manifested in my adulthood was actually a huge need to constantly perform at this level and put massive pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And in my teens, that manifested as the only thing that I felt I had control over was food. So my own disordered relationship with food played out because it was the thing that I had, that no one else could tell me that it was mine. My control. So no, very much so. I am. No, you're not. You am. You can be all sorts of things. And the other point you made that I was thinking is when you said about working with a coach, for example, and having someone listen to you. I was talking to a listening coach the other day, and she was saying one of the most powerful things about being a good listener, or having that person that you can lean into, is actually going to sit and properly listen, not sit there going, oh, how can I fix it? How can I fix it? Or what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? Is that when you can verbalize it, so when you can say, if I said to you, well, I just feel a bit sad, and there's space there, hearing the word sad is actually sometimes the first time you can actually properly acknowledge what you're feeling, because it's just being given space around it. I think that's really powerful. We underestimate that power of having someone in our world who's just there to hold that space for us.
No judgment, no, like you say, no trying to fix it. And that's actually for me, that's been the hardest thing with the coach, because I am a natural solution finder, problem solver. So that was my work before. So for me, it's really like really understanding the value of that space holding through having my own coaching. Like, I will always have my own coach, because I think it's almost like your little pocket coach that can just keep you like aware, like this conscious awareness that I'm talking about. It just helps build that out, and I don't think I will ever stop having it, because I never want to stop deepening that awareness of what's going on inside for me, as well as being able to translate that to how I help and support others as well. So yeah.
Definitely, because I think the more we can do that, the more we can bring that awareness, the more we align, which brings you back to your real, aligning with who we are. And there's something else you said about leading with the heart. And how do you think that, going back to what you were saying about being in the corporate world and your confidence being tied up historically by having to adopt a male kind of masculine, the posturing. I don't know if you've ever read Women in Power, but they look at like Theresa May and how she wore a suit, and Hillary Clinton, and how they adopted male dress and male body language in order to compete. As women, how do we find that confidence to lead with, not to lead with the heart, to embrace our femininity, to embrace our physicality, and not fall down that rabbit hole again of feeling, like we're exposed or we're vulnerable when we do that?
Yeah. I mean, it does take a leap of faith. I think it takes, like, it really can only come from really knowing who you are, and finding some confidence, like some real confidence in that, and knowing that each and every one of us is unique. And also that you're not alone with some of these struggles, and that a lot of people out there are also going through that internal battle and perhaps aren't necessarily getting the help for it. But certainly it comes back to a level of trust. And I think when we think about diet culture in particular, I was thinking about this when I was on my walk earlier, diet culture has impacted our confidence in that we can't trust ourselves. We don't know how to eat anymore. Once we've been on a diet for 20 years of our life, or even 10 or 5 years, and we've had to count calories or points or do this one, do that one, and we're so confused and it's all conflicting, we've lost this trust in ourselves. But actually, I remember I had evidence in my career where I was asked to make a decision, and my gut response, I wouldn't necessarily say my heart response, but my gut response, my gut instinct was X. Yet everyone else around the table needed to go away and spend 3 days on, or 3 weeks or 3 months on analysing the data, all this up in their head stuff, to be able to prove something before they could really say that that was the best approach. And again, you lose your confidence, and you don't necessarily trust that so much until in 3 months' time they come back and say, this is the approach we want to take, and you're thinking, well, that's what I told you 3 months ago. We could have saved you a lot of effort, So I'm pretty sure as women, we are a lot more in tune with that than our male counterparts. There are many men out there that are quite intuitive as well. And sometimes it takes us to put our neck on the line to say, actually, this is what I feel like. I am feeling this, or I am picking up on this kind of vibe, and that does put you in a vulnerable position because you don't have any data and logic to back it up. And it's okay if people want to go around the houses, to come up with their own answer. But I think it's the more you practice and exercise that, almost that heart-led response, which is usually that response that comes to you in the moment, rather than the one that comes to you after you've been ticking it over and mulling it over in your head for 3 days. The more you do that, the more you can start to trust it. So it's a leap of faith. There's no easy way, and some environments are harder to go there with than others. I was fortunate in the environment I was in. It was a Swiss culture, so it was very polite, very collaborative. Took forever to get anywhere. They liked their data, but it was certainly a lot easier to. But I still didn't feel, because I didn't have that inner confidence, I didn't feel like I could put myself on the line with such a thing like a gut instinct. Whereas I would do that very differently now.
I think it's a really powerful insight you've made there about how confidence, because when we talk about confidence, I guess we tend to think about how we hold ourselves and how we, all of those facade-y things, but actually that that relationship between trusting ourselves, and intuition is a real thing. It's there for a reason. It's what, when we were sat around the campfires as cave women, that instinctive protect, that part of us is inbuilt. We are very intuitive creatures. It's not the whole load of woo that's up in the sky. But we've been taught to almost apologize for it, I think. Haven't we? We've been taught to apologize for that, as though it's a foible of being a feminine creature, is this that we feel. But also that really valid point you made about trusting our own bodies, and how quickly diet culture is something we outsource to. Like, we outsource to a tracker or a phone app, or and trust that must know better than we do. And actually all that does, as you say, is lead you to the point where you just don't know yourself or your body anymore. Definitely. So practicing the art of trust, I think that's really powerful. Definitely really powerful. So what, in terms of the steps that you feel like someone could take away today, what are like the 3 things that anyone listening today could walk away and just implement, that's going to benefit them today? What do you think they would be?
It is perhaps what feels a little less intangible, but it's so easy to start doing, and that is to start catching yourself. So we have 60,000 plus thoughts a day, it's thought by neuroscientists. That's a hell of a lot of thoughts that we're not, if you think about it, we're not aware of, that are running in the background. So it's just tuning in to more and more of those thoughts and just getting curious as to what's come up. So if you if you're tempted to step on the scales, or you're tempted to skip a breakfast, or you're tempted to keep going to the fridge, whatever the behavior is, it's really key to start going, okay, what was I thinking just before that? So it's really that that act of tuning in, which takes very little time, effort, money, investment, other than to like raise your awareness. So that's always my biggest tip. The second one would be probably to my favorite really is to set an intention every day. So the first thing I do before I get out of bed is I grab my journal, not my phone, and I'm thinking about, how do I want to feel at the end of the day, and what is one thing that if I do that today, then I will be closer to feeling that way. So if I just want to feel calm today, what is one thing that I can do? It might actually be to go for a longer dog walk in the afternoon when the weather is meant to be sunny, and because I know I get calm from being out in nature. So it's setting a really small intention, which is different to a goal. It's different to, I'm only going to eat 1,500 calories today, or I'm going to, one thing that I almost slipped into this week was I'm going to do 50 kettlebell swings a day, 200 step ups, and 10,000 steps a day. They're all kind of the harder goals. So a softer intention is really just, if there's one thing that can help me move the needle, what is that? So really tuning in, setting those, just one intention for the day. And a third one would be to take time out of your day for some quality me time, even if that's only 5 minutes of your day, whether that's to read a book, take a bubble bath, take yourself off for some quiet time in another room, pour yourself a nice cup of tea and enjoy it somewhere with the sun on your face. It's to really ensure that you're getting that real me time.
They're fabulous. They're fabulous ideas. And I'm actually going to take away your soft intention, because I don't do that. And I think that's it's a really lovely and really powerful one to think about. How do I want to feel by the end of this day, and what one small thing can I do to make that happen? Rather than I think I personally tend to fall into the trap of waking up going, right, here's my to-do list, and thinking if I complete my to-do list, then I will feel calm or relaxed. But actually, that's not the case. So That's really powerful. And I think you're right, the quality time, those windows of me time. So I think it's, especially as women, we tend to be the predominant caregivers. We take on the majority of like emotional and invisible labor. So we struggle with giving ourselves permission to do that.
Yeah.
Even 5 minutes. I mean, I don't know about you and your clients, but I've often worked with women who feel guilty. They have they experience guilt. And I even worked with one client who was a teacher, worked 3 days a week, had 2 days a week that she spent at home doing all, the cleaning, the food shop, all the other jobs. She had 2 kids, but she called them her days off. So I always feel guilty because I feel like I have to be productive all the time because these are my days off. And we've reframed that as, no, they are the days you're not teaching.
Yeah.
And therefore you're allowed, you're being equally as productive. And there is, these aren't, it's not like you disappear off to the spa for 12 hours twice a week.
Yeah.
But I think there is something around permission there that we struggle with, I think.
Yeah.
But yes, I think when we can give ourselves permission to do that, we're giving ourselves permission to nurture ourselves. We value ourselves, don't we? We're saying we're worthy of that time with the tea and the book. Definitely.
Absolutely. And it's the whole airplane analogy with, put your own oxygen mask on first, because you're good to no one if you haven't. So there is that part that can appeal to the women that overgive, and but really it is because you are worth it. You are worthy of taking at least 5 minutes a day. I mean, I tend to, my kind of I don't have children, so I don't have that kind of added little ones to think about, but I do take myself off around 8:30 in the evening, and that last hour or so of the evening is my time, whether that's to read a book or to like take a bath or listen to something that I've been wanting to listen to all after. It's just that time to switch off and put the phone away before bed. It's sacred to me. It's literally so yeah, it's important.
Yeah, self-care. And how do you think self-care and confidence are related then?
I think it's absolutely related, because I think oftentimes we busy ourselves through life, and it's a way of avoiding this slowing down and stopping and just being with ourselves in our own skin, with no distraction and nothing to busy ourselves. And that can be incredibly confronting for some people. I know it was for me. And yes, it can be confronting, but it doesn't have to be anything scary or anything like that. And I think the more you do it, and the more you get comfortable being here now in your body as it is, without needing to change a thing, then that breeds again that inner confidence in who you are, kind of brings you back to you. It's like that. So it is a moment in time where you're not anywhere else but here in this body right now. So I think it's absolutely critical and related. Thanks. I never thought about the two connected, actually. So it caused me to think then.
Oh, sorry. The power of it's the power of presence, isn't it?
Yeah.
I heard a poem being read the other day by Kate Tempest, and there's a line in it that just keeps playing over and over and over in my head, and it is, let your hands know what they hold. And I thought that's such a powerful line for describing mindfulness and being present, isn't it? It's just in that moment, bring yourself right back to what I'm physically feeling here and now.
Yeah, nice. Like that
line. And so if you could have a billboard that the entire world could see, what would you put on it, Emma? What would you write?
Put myself on it. No, I would say stop waiting for one day when you've finally lost the weight, or you've got the promotion or you've met the one before you feel confident and happy and content with your life, when life is now, as we were just saying. And it's too precious to keep waiting. So I'm very passionate about this, stopping the waiting game, and kind of pressing play on life now, and getting support. Like, you don't have to do it alone. Get help and support, for sure.
100%. And talking about getting help and support, if any of our community wanted to reach out to you, where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
Yep, so I'm all over social media, on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me at emmaclayton.xo, and on LinkedIn at Emma Clayton Coach. And just thinking what else I have. I'm just coming up with a new freebie. It's not quite ready, otherwise I'd be able to offer you that. But if you were to follow me on any of those platforms, then you'd be able to get your hands on that first.
They will be, okay, first to the post. They follow you, they'll get it, which is very exciting.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time today, Emma. It's been hugely insightful. I love talking with you. And
likewise.
Thank you so much for coming over and being part of the club.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you have taken something away from listening, perhaps one small action you can put into practice today. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, so pop on over to Reframe Club where you can share them, your own reflections and experiences. We would love to hear from you. As always, here at Reframe Club, we are rooting for you.